Are we ready to compete with those teams? I don't know, but we will compete, and that's the thing. And, I think if we compete, we defend like we defend the last 2 nights, move the ball like we've done, I think we can play with anyone.
That was Draymond Green after last night's win over the Kings, which leads us to crunch time here on The Jump. Richard, the Warriors beat the Kings by 31. They have won 4 of their last 5. Are the Warriors starting to give more indications that they are, in fact, a playoff team even without Klay?
Yeah, well, look, this is what the addition of Draymond has done for them.
Yes.
Another playmaker, a defensive player of the year. But ultimately, they need to make the playoffs because at the end of the day, Klay Thompson does not take them from a non-playoff team to a contender.
Right.
He should take them from a playoff team to a contender.
Yeah, I see the biggest difference is Draymond. His leadership on the court, the numbers aren't really showing it, but just his presence and what he does and what he says on the bench, on the court has made a huge difference.
Yeah. If you're looking at scoring numbers to evaluate his worth, you're looking in the wrong place. He's been night and day so valuable for that team in the past couple games, much on how team health officials say they're struggling to find balance in managing their jobs amid the current COVID-19 protocols. Compliance with league policy has fallen largely on athletic trainers, who, of course, also responsible for helping players maintain their bodies for optimal performance. One anonymous, look at these quotes. One anonymous Western Conference head athletic trainer told Baxter, quote, "We're responsible for the logistics of all the staff, PCR testing, and all of the player rapid testing and the compliance with the timelines that go into that every day, whether it's an off day, game day. So the workload has increased dramatically, and there's not been a decrease in any of the other workload." Richard, I thought you guys could give good insight, right, between the relationship between players and trainers and this relationship changing with coronavirus protocols and sort of the burden on these guys. And the dynamic is always
You're setting it up. All you have to do is say this. It's different than what it was a long time ago. But that's not the point. The point is like that anonymous GM or the anonymous trainer sounded like we have a lot more work to do. That's really what it comes down to, because when we first came into the league, and this is not a get off our lawn. It's
the whole show.
You had two trainers, and one of the trainers was an equipment manager, and that's also why they would crack jokes about if you're a young player, don't even think about getting on the table.
Right.
You need room for veterans, right? But now it's to a point where you have 3 trainers. You have what is it called? A sports science team. You have a sleep doctor. You have 3 nutritionists. You have 4 weight coaches. You have a staff of like 15 people that used to do a job of 3. So don't tell me that these protocols and this more work. Yes, it is more work, but there's a lot of people there that are helping to put their hands on these athletes.
In other words, they're asking for a raise.
Yeah, basically. That's basically it. We got a lot more work to do.
We got a lot more work. I need more pay.
I do think it's a lot, and the protocols do keep changing. They just issued something about masks, right? And when guys are on the bench versus when they come out for halftime versus all of that. It is a lot to keep track of. And then the protocols, too, about how many people can be in a room with a guy when he is on the training table have changed. So I do think, you are being unnecessarily harsh.
Go 10 years ago.
Yes.
And look, and if we were to do a number, each team that had a quote unquote training medical staff, and we can include the weight team, like the weight staff. Yeah. So you would have a weight coach and an assistant weight coach. No one had personal trainers. So then you would have so literally it's a total of 6. Now that number has ballooned to between 10 and 15. So between 10 and 15 versus 10, 15 years ago, don't tell me that you can't still get hands on bodies of players. Basically what he's saying is can they just, the NBA hire one protocol person to handle that so we can focus on the players? That's what I'm hearing.
Said it best.
I mean, the teams could hire that if they wanted to.
They
right?
could, but they're we're paying 15 people already on this staff.
Yeah, but the value of the franchise went up to $2-3 billion.
Right, yeah, exactly. So there you go. I do know in the bubble there were a couple guys who just forgot to get tested, as you may remember. I'm not pointing any fingers at you, Richard Jefferson, but in teams they would say, well, that the athletic trainer was supposed to chase him down. It's just a lot for these guys to do.
It is a lot, and they've never had to do this before.
And you got to understand, they're putting themselves at more risk of catching also. And so when you have 1 or 2 people, I think teams should do this. you have 15 players on a team, you should assign 3 players to 1 trainer. So if that means hiring 5 trainers now,
they got 5 trainers.
They have 5 trainers, and it'll lessen the load on a lot of these guys because there's still some teams at the bottom that got 1 or 2 trainers.
Well, also, I think part of this is there's more sensitivity because of a short offseason for some teams or a very long offseason for other teams, and you have more soft tissue injury concerns. Another line that stood out in the piece was them talking about how an overload of healthcare providers, meaning that, notable injuries we've already seen this season, right? Do you think that if trainers are stretched thinner, we will see more injuries, or there's no correlation? It's just timing and injuries.
Yeah, there's no correlation. But I will tell you this about the players now. They're more needy also. I mean, this is
wow.
No, seriously, because I remember my last day.
Yeah, that has nothing to do. That has nothing to do with COVID protocols.
Yeah, that has nothing to do with the trainer not stretching them or nothing. I mean, you're gonna get an injury some way, somehow, because you're an athlete. But the players will come. I remember players coming until and get with the trainer if they had a bad toenail or something. Or like seriously, like everybody was on the table. Before, everybody would come in and get up shots, lift weights. Now everybody come in at 8 a.m. to get on the table. Yeah. And so there's more demand for the trainer and more work for him.
And
it
again,
wasn't like that before.
The technology of the equipment, whether it's Game Readies, NormaTecs, all of these things did not exist 10, 15 years ago. So you're talking about no Game Readies, no NormaTecs, no like hydrotherapy bath, no, all of this equipment there. No, but it's for a player. You can go home in NormaTec. You can go home with a Game Ready. You can get there 15 minutes. Or every team has a massage therapist. Every single team has a massage therapist. Sometimes, no, I'm not bitter. I'm just saying that, like, the players have everything at their disposal. So for a trainer to come and say, well, we can't get hands on the players. It's like, wait, what are you talking about here?
This is why I want to
This is why he was anonymous, ladies and gentlemen. This is why he was anonymous, because he's just like, wait, we only have 3 massage therapists, we have 6 trainers, and we have 3 wait staff, but we have an overload.
There you go. This is the word from these 2 guys. I can't see them from their lawn. I'm so far off it, but that's for later. Exposure to someone who tested positive. Now, remember, KD himself had COVID-19 in May, but this is the league's protocol, and he does, if he misses all 7 days, that will include the next 4 games. So starting tonight against Utah, back-to-back against Philly, Memphis, then a Sunday game against the Thunder. So, Tim, the Nets are only 3-4, even with KD playing 6 of the first 7 games. What do you feel the Nets should be focusing on over the next week without their leading scorer?
Well, Steve Nash needs to go find every instructional tape he can find on how to play defense and just play them for the next week, whenever they can. Play them, give them to guys to watch at home, watch at practice, watch on the plane, at the hotel, before the game. This team needs to start guarding people. They don't have very much defensive talent. If you go through their top 8 or 9 guys, I would argue they have no above-average defensive players, and they have several minus ones, whether it's Kyrie Irving, Joe Harris, Karis LeVert, Taurean Prince. So they're already working at a deficit, but this team needs to play much better at that end if they want to be a true championship contender. If you go over the last decade, no team other than the Golden State Warriors has been outside the top 10 in defensive efficiency. And the Warriors in 2018 were 11th in defensive efficiency. That was a team, I think we'd all agree, that had a lot more defensive talent than being outside of the top 10. This team does not have that. They have to get much, much better at that end, I think, if they want any chance of being an elite team in the East.
Yeah, and look, I think Kevin Durant's best defensive years came when he was in Golden State, and that's because of the clear principles, the style of defense. He was motivated he was up there in conversation towards the end of the year, is like, could he be the defensive player of the year? So is he going to be able to get to that same spot? I don't think so. I think for me, you have to look at the other guys. You always have to look at your team from, like, as a player and say, like, where can I contribute? Losing Spencer Dinwiddie, Taurean Prince, these guys have to focus on the defensive end. If you told me all I have to do is become an above average defender and we are a championship level team, but that's what it's going to take. But that's also going to be the leadership. You talk about the leadership of Kyrie, the leadership of Kevin Durant. Can they get the other players to buy in on a defensive scheme? And Steve Nash, and look, we know Mike D'Antoni is not a defensive monster, but they need a lot of guys contributing on the defensive end, and they're not getting it.
Yeah, you don't have to have individual great defensive players to have a great defensive team. You just need a great infrastructure on defense. I mean, my Boston Celtics team, we didn't have individual great defenders outside of Kevin, but we had a system in place. But also, I've been watching the Nets this year, and I think they have to do a better job at staggering their stars, too. I think Kevin or Kyrie needs to play with the second unit. I also believe Jared Allen should be starting. I mean, I think he's a huge key to what they do defensively. And so I think it's just minor tweaks in what they need to do with their lineup as far as staggering minutes with your stars, getting more time, trying to find more minutes for Jared Allen in that starting lineup also. And I think that'll help their defensive performance moving forward.
Tim, what's the politics right now on Jared Allen starting?
Well, DeAndre Jordan is friends with Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, so he is starting. There's little doubt to me that Jared Allen is the far better player, and he should be starting, and Paul is right. I'm sure Richard would agree, whether he'll say it or not. And that just doesn't seem like it's going to be the case, and that's to Paul's point. That's
remember,
one of the tweaks that should happen.
It's all about who your friends with.
It's all about who you.
It's all about who your friends with.
Why are you pointing at me? Anyways.
That was fantastic. Tim, thank you so much for joining us.
I will say that as soon as they fired the coach, DeAndre Jordan was starting like the very next.
Hey, listen, Richard Jefferson was friends with LeBron.
Who?
Therefore, he got on the team.
I don't like that dude.
You know what I'm